In this week's episodes, we've been focusing on the importance of emotions, but you know what day it is, special guest day. Today's special guest is going to be a job recruiter from Hirevue, Mr. Dante Rossi. He's going to answer some questions that we've been having about AI and how it recognizes faces, but more importantly, how it recognizes emotions. So let's give a special hand for our special guest.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So as Selena mentioned, I'm going to be answering some of your questions about AI, but in the meantime, I have a question for you guys. So we're going to play a video on your screen that shows a few facial expressions of different people. We want you to guess what some of these emotions are and keep that in the back of your mind when I start talking about AI.
One of the most important parts of nonverbal communication is the ability to read and understand facial expressions. You simply learn half of the story if you only listen to what a person says and ignore what the person's face is telling you. Can you figure out what emotions each of these people are feeling just by reading their facial expressions? Often, words do not match emotions, and the face betrays what a person is actually feeling. That is what I'm here to talk with you about today.
Our first question is, what does artificial intelligence really do in regards to facial recognition when you're going for an interview?
Hirevue developed a recruiting technology that essentially allows us to understand a candidate's facial expressions, their muscle movement, how their voice changes when they're asked specific questions, things that are all similar to this. And what this does is it gives candidates a score that essentially ranks them against each other based on employability.
Wow, that's so incredible, but what are the downsides of comparing people like that?
The first downside really that we've seen with response to our software is that some people tend to think that the technology that we use is simply looking to fit a black box. People think that the technology that we use is looking for a specific smile or to see how attractive somebody looks, something of that nature. But like I said earlier, we really just use the expressions that people generate once we ask them a question to better understand how they'll respond to these things. The second problem that we've seen arise is that there are some people who think that the technology used at Hirevue inherently incorporates bias into the decision process. So there's an article on PBS that kind of breaks this down a bit more of how this could potentially reinforce inequality. However, while there's inherently human bias that goes into these because these are human-generated algorithms, we understand at Hirevue and we strive to ensure that we have a workplace that's filled with diverse and inclusive people who recognize that these are the people that will be using the software and that we need to make this as unbiased as possible.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, so keeping all of those things in mind, what are the positives that come out of this Hirevue interviewing process, and what are the stuff we can expect to see in the future that kind of address all of those concerns?
Some of the biggest positives that we've seen with this technology here at Hirevue is that we've really allowed companies to speed up the recruiting and interviewing process. So for example, we've helped Hilton and Urban Outfitters decrease their interviewing process time by 90%. So by doing so, we've allowed their recruiters to really sift through the top talent and that way bring them in for in-person interviews as quickly as possible.
Wow.
In addition to that, with your second question about how we've been addressing inequality, Hirevue is going to be partnering with VCV, a new technology firm, to help us figure out how to eliminate some of this bias that might go into the recruiting process and the video facial recognition.
Our final question for you is, for our nervous interviewers out there, what are some things this new technology is really looking for in an interview?
Yeah, so on our website, Lauren Lenson, who is our Chief Technology Officer, kind of breaks this down a little bit. So there's essentially 350 things that our technology looks for in candidates, and some of these things range from whether they use we or I when they talk, the types of verbs they use, if they're active or if they're passive, what their sentence structure looks like, and things of that nature. And really that is kind of how we break things down here at Hirevue.
Nonetheless, there is always a way to cheat the system. Dante has left us with some tangible tips when having to use AI facial recognition video platforms when applying for a job. Tip number 1, understand the company's culture. Look at the company's Facebook page or read the About Us so when you're answering questions, they align with the company's core values. 2, research who you will be working under. Visit your possible boss's LinkedIn profile. Familiarize yourself with their previous workplaces, academic career, or organizations that they volunteer for. Tip 3. Rehearse and practice. Like we've said earlier, make sure you're smiling, not talking slow, and using a good tone of voice when answering the questions. Tip 4. Pick the right attire. According to a recent survey by Adecco, 75% of hiring managers believe that the top interview mistake millennials make is wearing inappropriate attire. Something modest and business casual is great for a video interview. And tip 5, act as though you are talking to someone in person. Use hand gestures to emphasize key phrases and use voice tone to show them when you feel an emotion.